We're going to do some practicing now on painting apples. We're also going to do later, we're going to do a lime and a pear. So write your name here. First and last name. First and last lame. Go ahead and do that now. Do it now. First and last name and your hour. Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. Do that now. And then I want you to watch the demonstration, and then I will play it all over again. Okay, so the sunshine up here in the corner, that is obviously to indicate where the light is coming from. So the light's hitting here, so this will be our lightest area here. So you are going to need green and red. I'm going to use a little bit of yellow on this, and then for the highlights at the end, we're going to use a teeny little bit of white. So go ahead and get your paint palette when you watch the second time. Put your paint palette and your paint brushes. Remember, you have to make sure that all of the paint brushes at your desk are clean. And are you going to rinse out your paint palette after each class? No, Miss Littlefinger, we're not rinsing out the paint palette. Oh my gosh, you told us that. You told us not to, so we're not going to. So I've got my red and my green, and I'm not going to use my red or my yellow and my white just yet. Those are for highlights. So I'm going to go ahead and paint this very lightly with my red, so I get a nice base coat on there. And then I'm going to start blending those colors in. I'm not going to do anything to the stem right now. This is the highlight on the apple, so I'm going to just go over it really thin. I'm going to go ahead and go over it really thin. The first coat of paint is called your base coat. You're not supposed to have a solid coat on the first time. That's just your base coat. So I'm going to go ahead and just paint the whole thing. I like to paint it first for a couple of reasons. One, of course, to get the base coat on, but also once that's wet, then blending my colors on top of it will be much easier. So I've done this light enough that I can see those guidelines through this coat of paint. Now I'm going to mix up my dark red. And I want this to be as close to dark as dark red I can get without getting too green. So of course this is trial and error. Remember, we did this on our value scale. So you're going to use these if you're not sure how to mix those colors. Make sure that you get a gradual change from dark to light. I'm going to start on my edges. Now that I've got a nice dark color, start on my edges, and I'm going to pull my brush instead of push my brush. I don't have any control if I try to push my brush like this, so I'm going to pull it. I'm going to do my darkest value on the outside edge. And this line here, this curved line right there, that curved line is showing the front and the back of the apple. Behind that curved line is the back of the apple. Okay. Then I'm going to mix up a little bit more red. If you need to get more than one paint palette for this, if we have enough, you're welcome to use more than one. And then start blending in the next color. And if you notice, your apples have a little bit, they have some striation, saying that right, of dark and light. You can kind of see some lines in your original apple. It's also going to be really dark, my darkest value on the right hand side, just at the very edge, just to the very edge, and then it needs to lighten up quite a bit. I'm going to go around my highlighted area. No, I think I've got a little bit too much. Make sure we've got a tissue at your desk so you can change those. And now I need to go even lighter with my red. Making sure it's really important on a round object that you are curving those lines out. Follow those guidelines that are on the drawing, the original drawing that you're working from. And I want to rinse out all of that dark red and go back to just my pure red and go over this area here and blend back in to those areas. Okay, now on the apple, some of the apples have a yellow spot. So I'm going to go ahead and get my yellow out. and that happens to be where the highlight is. So I'm going to use that yellow for my highlight. Really, really, really important to make sure your brushes are clean. This water is red already, so what I would need to do is dump this out, get fresh water. Remember, we're not going to the sink to get your water. You are getting one container of water to use at your desk. At the end of class, one person will just go over and empty that out. So I'm going to put my highlight right here, and I want to blend that in a little bit here. Some of the apples have a little bit of yellow coming out from the top here too. It's really wet, so I'm not able to get that over the top. I'd have to let that dry. For the stem, you're going to mix colors to get your brown. So I'm going to take my red, I'm going to take my darker red here, one of my darker reds, and mix just a little bit of yellow into it. See if I can get that to start turning brown for me. Mixing complementary colors will make a brown, but you don't want to have the same dark brown here up here, so you want to use different complementary colors. I'm going to try a little bit of orange and blue to get that brown. We're going to mix all of our colors from our primary and secondary colors. You can do this all from primary colors, the entire thing from primary colors and white, if you have the perfect red. That's the hardest thing to find, is the perfect red. If I have a red that's too warm, then it's going to make it orange. If I've got a red that's too cool, then it's going to make it violet, and I don't want either one of those. So make sure I've got a clean brush before I get any paint out. If there's a little gel on the top of your paint, then you probably need to close the lid and shut that back up. Alright, let's see if I mix the orange and the blue together, if I can get a nice brown. I need to use a separate spot to mix that up. Now if you fill up your paint, all the holes on your paint palette, you can always get a tissue, paper towel, and clean those out instead of getting a brand new container. I need a smaller brush for this too. But that's how you get the brown on that. Okay, then your final touch is to look for the really high key reflections. And on this, I'm just going to add some little dots of white. Not very much. I'm not mixing the white in with my paint. I'm just going to use a little bit here to show where the light would reflect. And that's it. Les apples. Okay, I'm going to play the video again. I want you to follow along with the directions and paint your best possible apple. Remember to keep it curved lines, go dark to light, and use your complementary colors to mix your colors.